Hey, welcome to Deep Focus. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman. This is part 3 of a show from February 16th, 2026. My guest, Steve Slagle, and the topic he called out, Charlie Haden. And particularly, we're going to pick up here in part 3 with this program with Ornette Coleman in Paris, 1971. And I told a little tale out of school, maybe, introducing part 2. And if you haven't heard part 2 and part 1, I do recommend starting with those, but otherwise, jump right in here with us. But I told the story about Charlie Haden, a little bit of insight into his very active political life that came into play on this tour that we're listening to right here. I meant to mention, it got past me, that I was reminded of that story by the wonderful Steve Plever, who's a listener and a friend and an old radio cohort of mine. A mentor, I will say, because he's top shelf. And if you're in Asheville, North Carolina, you can find him on the air there, Shiny Top. But, all right, we're going to get right into it. It's Deep Focus from February 2026. Steve Slagle on the topic of Charlie Haden. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. That is Ornette Coleman Quartet. Live recording from the WKCR archives in Paris, October 1971. Dewey Redman, tenor saxophone, Ed Blackwell on the drums. The subject of tonight's Deep Focus, Charlie Haden, playing the bass. And Ornette Coleman, alto saxophone. And our guest tonight who chose Charlie Haden, Steve Slagle, here in the studio with us. And what do you think, man? Are they going to come back out and do another one? You think we can get them to come back out? So good.
Oh, that, by the way, that song is on the record Science Fiction.
Yes.
On Columbia Records. I recognize it, and I can't quite remember the title. I think it might be called Law Years, but I could be wrong. I'd have to look at the record. But that's one that I know from this record called Science Fiction that they had just done, coincidentally. So I'd have to look up to find out the exact title of that one. But that's a really great line. I really like that one.
We got a magic night of this band. Maybe every time they set foot on stage, magic happened. I don't know. I just know that this one time, it came together, and it's just. I want to hear from your ears in that piece, whether it was Rock the Clock or Law Years, or what did you hear in there? What was going on?
Well, he wrote this theme, Chibadoo-biboo, boo-boo-boo, da-da-da, 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 shi-da-da, shi-da-da. So it's going into different keys, shi-da-da, da-da-da, 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 and when I first heard that, that's like some real interesting stuff, like the way the line goes and the way that he wrote it, that it fits the alto saxophone really perfectly, which is my instrument. And so, I remember learning that line from that record just because I liked it, And then they blow free off of that mood, off of that mode or mood or whatever you want to say. And so that is quite a bit longer than the record. I mean, that one was 19 minutes long. Well, the record is just like 4 or 5.
It just seemed like the ideas just kept coming, and they just never ran out of places to go. And Blackwell drops out, and there's this, bass and saxophone duet, and then, and that takes on another shape, and they just kept flowing and evolving.
Yeah. I mean, this is pretty new music, and not everybody could quite understand it or fathom it, and maybe it elicited different reactions, because one little story I can tell on on the air that maybe isn't the cutest story to tell, but it's out of the words, out of the mouth of Dewey Redman. When I first got to know him, I in fact said, one record I told Dewey, one record I really had listened to a lot, among others, was Science Fiction, and the record that he did with Ornette. And Dewey, in typical Dewey fashion, kind of laughed and said, oh, you enjoyed that one, huh? He said, all I can remember is, he said, we were in the Columbia recording studios, and we finished a song like that one that we just heard, and of course they did shorter versions of it on the record, so it's like a 5-minute version of that song, and beautiful. And he said, I go back to the engineer of Columbia Records, and said, could I hear how did that take sound? Or Dewey asked him something, and the engineer who was recording the record that day said to Dewey, I don't know, it all sounds like noise to me.
Oh, God.
That's what Dewey told me, that's what the engineer said to him.
Wow.
And so we all think of this stuff in this, highfalutin way now, and yet that's down to earth. What Dewey Redman told me, that the Columbia Records this is 1971, whatever their big money makers were that year. I wouldn't know. You'd have to look into that. But in other words, that was the reaction to some of this music, to the person who was playing it. Now, I can understand that a person who never heard this might, think this or that about it, but just to say that is really kind of obviously disrespectful, and not really creating such a great...
No. You remind me of a story that I heard from the other side of another recording of Ornette's on Atlantic, that and it was the double quartet, which this was referring to.
You mean free jazz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know who the engineer was for that? According
No.
to the story that he told me himself, was Phil Ramone.
Okay.
Phil Ramone started out as a recording engineer and later went on to become one of
R&B and rock,
most successful record producer. Everything from Sinatra duets to Billy Joel, Tony Bennett,
right?
Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And he told me himself that he started out as a staff engineer for Atlantic, and what he wanted to do, he wanted to record Ray Charles, he wanted to record Aretha Franklin, and there were these hits that were coming out, this legendary pop music. But he was the new guy, so he was like an assistant maybe on some of those, and they let him take the overnight slots. And the overnight slots, that's when they recorded that, jazz stuff that nobody was really interested in, the Coltrane and the Mingus and all that stuff.
Okay.
And he told me, said, oh God, it was just every night it was something, these guys would show up. I remember one time Ornette Coleman and this other saxophonist, and then there was two trumpets. I was like, well, was that saxophonist Eric Dolphy? He's like, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. It's like, took the top of my...
Scott LaFaro on bass.
Yeah.
Billy Higgins and Eddie Blackwell on drums. Two of the greatest drummers.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, God, this is what I got to do now.
Right.
So, which sounds horrible. But Phil Ramone, I would gladly have you come in and defend yourself if I'm misrepresenting you. My apologies, but I do remember you telling me that story. He's long gone now, but he did say it to me. But I mean, I guess I kind of appreciate it from the point of view of a guy who's got a staff job, and Columbia Records was that kind of place.
Yes.
It was on 30th Street, and they had their staff guys, and you kind of, you took what came through the door, whatever the A&R guys set up for you to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was something you were excited about, and sometimes, hey, it's your job. Go do it.
Right.
But, yeah, that's a terrible attitude to take, and it's a really awful thing to say to an artist.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when Dewey said that to me, he said it in, a joking kind of way, not in any kind of like depressive kind of way, because I was telling him how much I love the record. There are things, there's a few cuts on the record. There's one where they play the radio. In fact, the cut that's called Science Fiction. It's like a radio broadcast and like static music, and it's crazy to listen to. It's not exactly like you put that cut on for a party or something, but, there's such great little pieces of composition on there. There's about 4 or 5 like just incredible compositions on that record. Yeah. And like we were talking about, this singer Asha Pulthi, if I'm hopefully pronouncing her name right, that sings on 2 of the songs that Ornette wrote, and I believe wrote the lyrics for too, because they don't have a lyricist listed. So it's words and music by Ornette, and I love both of those songs on there. It's one of the only things I know that Ornette did with a singer with lyrics that I know.
Very true. And boy, does it stand up.
I like it.
Yeah, if you listen to the record Science Fiction and hold in your head this concert we've been listening to that we're almost coming down to the end of, and they were recorded the same week. Remarkable. I think this is a glorious concert. I would have loved to have been there for that. And these guys just come through. Their individual, their personalities, their character comes through, and their passion and imagination. Charlie Haden in particular, he's the way that he holds down this vital supporting role for the music, and yet also has his own voice very prominently in there. It's a remarkable achievement.
For sure.
Steve Slagle is my guest. The show's called Deep Focus. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman, and we always invite a guest, and the guest chooses a topic. And Steve Slagle drew our attention to Charlie Haden, who you worked with on Ballad of the Fallen, another record that you're going to want to have in your collection. And you might not find this Paris recording from 1971 of Ornette Coleman Quartet, but we're playing it for you. So let's enjoy it together. Anything else you want to say before we hear this last? Band's going to come back out for a week. I think we're going to get them to do an encore. What do you think?
This is an encore. It says Prohibition. Now, I don't know that title, but let's see what it is.
Let's see what it is. All right. It's music from Ornette Coleman Quartet on WKCR. Wow. Wow. Boffo ending for that recording. It was a huge set of music. I hope you're not just tuning in because we've been playing nothing but that one live set since 6 o'clock p.m., interspersed with some fascinating conversation with our guest tonight, Steve Slagle. And we've just been, I don't know about you, Steve and I have been here in the studio and just relishing every second of this set, and it ended strong. Little departure for both of our lead instruments, Steve.
Yeah. musette, which Dewey loved to play, the double reed instrument.
Yeah. And also a little an ornette, heard on trumpet, and sounding vigorous and chops up. And Charlie Haden, also a little bit of a departure in his sound.
Right, he was playing the wah-wah on his bass, which he did on the record. It reminded me they did on the record called Friends and Neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah, which
you reminded me was on Flying Dutchman.
It's funny, you and I both have that LP. We both have science fiction. I don't have every Ornette album. There's a lot of them. But yeah, those two that we both happen to have.
Yeah.
Let me just say, I said this a little bit earlier. Anybody, if you're listening, if you were not familiar with the music of Ornette Coleman, maybe you knew the name and you didn't really know the music, and if you got excited about this, you absolutely should have some Ornette Coleman in your collection. And he made a lot of recordings and a big range of them. Electric bands, symphonic orchestras, all kinds of different stuff, duet recordings, a small handful of sideman recordings that he made as well. And explore, and you will be richly rewarded. And I could say the same about every member of this group. Some more so than others, but you'll find lots of different sounds and textures and recordings of Charlie Haden doing his thing, Ed Blackwell, Dewey Redman, all of them. A lot to explore and discover. And speaking of exploring and discovering, Steve Slagle, what opportunities do our listeners have to hear things coming up with you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I have a quartet, that I try to keep working as much as possible. And coming up in the spring, we've got a few nice gigs that we'll be playing at. It's right outside of town, this great club called the Side Door Jazz in Connecticut. What town in Connecticut is it in? You can look it up easily on the internet. It's called Side Door Jazz. And we're playing there April 11th, so it's not until the spring. But that's a really special place. And I'll be playing with my quartet, which I have a great new guitar player, Matthew Rotker-Lynn, on guitar, who's a young blood in New York, one of the really great talents that's coming up, and Desron Douglas on bass, and Byron Landam on drums. Byron lives in Philadelphia, but he's pretty present in New York also. And then let me see, coming up in May, the first weekend I think in May, I'm at Smalls with with my quartet. I forget the dates, but it's the first Friday and Saturday of May. This next month, I'm out of town for a while. I'm in March. I love leaving New York in the ugly month of late February and March. So I'm going to see some family in the Bay Area and maybe drum up some work. We'll see.
Nice.
But, always looking for more. I keep a quartet as busy as I can. My latest records have piano, quartet with piano on it, but in the last year or so, over this summer, I exchanged the piano for guitar, and I've played with guitar players a lot over my time, and I like having guitar instead of piano sometimes. And so, those are coming up, and I'll keep you posted, Mitch, on anything that comes up before that.
And how do people keep track of all the things you're doing? Or are you a social media guy?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram is lately. I mean, Instagram to me is the most instant way to announce things. For instance, even this, like I can put your ad and put it on my Instagram site. That to me has become the easiest way, because these days, you have a website that, you pay somebody to make, and then it takes you like 5 hours to list like a gig that you have on it or something. I mean, it's just, maybe I'm getting old with that, but I think it's getting old. I think I'm not getting old. I think it's starting to get old, and so even though you can go to my website, stevesleglemusic.com, I'd say just go to the site on Instagram and check that out, because that's the most instant way that I post like things.
And what's your handle on Instagram?
Geez, I think it's a good question. It's just my name. I think it's Steve Slagle Music.
Slagle.
That's right.
Yes,
that's right.
And you always bring it, man. And my guest tonight, sitting here so generously and astutely, you have been part of this music. You've played with, maybe not everybody, but you've played with everybody. And you've been part of a lot of amazing recordings, multiple Grammy Award winner, and somebody that you should definitely check out. And you got... you have quite a few albums under your name, not to mention all the other stuff that you've been on.
Yeah, I'm thankful to, I've had a great producer, this guy Rick Simpson, over the last 10 years. And so the last many records that I've done under Panorama Records with his production have really been nice to do, because he's a great lover of music, and gives me a lot of chance to play the things that I want to play on records. And thank you, Mitch. I mean, I appreciate it, man. The saxophone has always been the center of my music, but I spent a lot of time writing, either on the saxophone or piano, or just putting it from my head onto paper. And that's something that I spend more and more time with too, and then a lot of it I'll play with my group, but sometimes I'll play it in different situations. Like I did a soundtrack for a short movie that's about gun control in the United States, and I did the music for it that isn't on a recording, but it's on this. You can look it up. It's called "There Is Still Time" is the name of the movie, and it's I think it's on YouTube and stuff like that. There Is Still Time. It's a little short 10-minute movie that I did the music for. And, so stuff like that I like to keep involved with.
Yeah. So, we had a deep immersion in Ornette Coleman and Charlie Haden circa 1971.
Yeah.
But we spent a lot of time listening to a lot of other music that Charlie Haden was part of, and we've got 16 minutes left. You want to pick something from another recording that we had in the ready?
Well, of course, the Keith Jarrett quartet is one that I really recommend. Also, Mitch called out to get Ornette's recordings, and I'd also say that the quartet that Keith had mainly on Impulse Records, but also on Columbia Records, the record called Expectations is on Columbia. Wow, I really think that was a great quartet, and I got to see it live a lot when in the early 70s, about this same period of time that we're listening. And I really loved that group. So we have something that Mitch found from the archives, deep in the dusty archives, and it says Keith Jarrett Trio. So this is recorded 1972. It says in France. It doesn't say where.
Well, no, it's actually at the House of Radio, which is still there.
Yeah.
And
Maison de la Radio.
Yes, in Paris. And they do beautiful recordings there. It's a wonderful live
I think
hall.
I've been there.
I bet you have.
I've been there with Carla Bley, I believe. And so this one is we were thinking about. It's called Expectations, which was the title of his record on Columbia, which is really a great record, by the way, that Charlie's on. And as far as I remember, Expectations is a slow bass feature. So we haven't heard this particular one, but that's what I remember it was from the recording.
Let's go there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I think this is going to carry us right through to the end. So, Steve, let me take this opportunity to thank you for coming through, man, and bringing the wisdom and the love and all of it.
Big fun, man. It's been big fun just to go back and hear the freedom of expression and the interplay between those four great musicians. I hope everybody dug it. I mean, it wasn't recorded like a perfect record. Sometimes Dewey was a little bit off mic or whatever, but you can really feel the love and the great interplay and the great compositions of Ornette on that over an hour and a half long concert.
Absolutely.
Something else.
From you, Steve Slagle, thank you for being here.
You're welcome, Mitch. It's been a great pleasure, man, to be back here at WKCR.
All right. Keith Jarrett Trio, another from the KCR archives from 1972. It's Charlie Haden on bass, Paul Motion on the drums, Keith Jarrett piano. On W, I'm Mitch Goldman. I'll say goodnight to you, too. The show's called Deep Focus. Find us on the Deep Focus podcast on your phone or your favorite podcast app, or at the hosting site, which is mitchgoldman.podbean.com. And this is Keith Jarrett's Expectations on WKCR.
Yeah, this should be perfect because it...
talk over the music on this show, that can only mean we're hitting the wall, baby. Thank you for being along with us tonight. Huge thanks to Steve Slagle for coming through and being part of the show. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome, Mitch.
And I'm just letting you know that you are listening to WKCR New York, WKCR-HD, WKCR 89.9 FM here in New York City, WKCR.org anywhere in the world, and this program, Deep Focus, available on your favorite podcasting app or at the hosting site, mitchgoldman.podbean.com. You can also follow us along on Instagram. It's Deep Focus Podcast, deep_focus_podcast at Instagram. We post little stories about the upcoming program, and there's photos and discussions there sometimes with your fellow listeners. So come find us and be part of the program, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Meanwhile, keep it tuned right here, WKCR.